Hello, everybody. This is Gary. Today is Sunday, November 7th, 2021. It's 3:39 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in Rochester, New York, in the United States. And this is my coping with schizophrenia blog entry for today. Today I'm doing okay. My anxiety levels are pretty much under control. My paranoia is pretty much under control. My hallucinations are less intense. My insomnia is not that bad. I actually slept pretty good last night. I went to bed around 10 p.m., woke up around 7 a.m. Of course, there was an hour's difference because of daylight savings time. I threw off my sleep schedule a little bit, but not by much. I slept a good 7 or 8 hours last night. Sometimes I do get up in the middle of the night with a panic attack, but those haven't been all that bad. I had a panic attack last night, lasted like 10, 15 minutes. And that's kind of separate from my psychotic symptoms. My psychotic symptoms, like the paranoia and the delusions and the hallucinations, are pretty much under control. I'm doing better this weekend than last weekend. Like I said in some of my previous videos, over the past few days, I went to psychiatric emergency last Saturday. Didn't spend a lot of time there. I went in early in the morning around 6 or 7 a.m. I was home by 2 p.m. They gave me some Klonopin and some Zyprexa to calm me down. And I went to sleep in the emergency room for a few hours. And I asked to speak to the psychiatrist, told him that I wasn't suicidal anymore, at least, and my hallucinations were less intense. I was getting command hallucinations last Saturday. Those are hallucinations, auditory, hearing voices telling me to do things, and they were telling me to commit suicide, which is actually unusual for my hallucinations. My hallucinations are not usually command hallucinations telling me to do things. They're usually just voices telling me that people are following me, people are spying on me, people are plotting against me. They're not usually telling me to do things. But I was getting command hallucinations last Saturday, and I was kind of freaking out because my apartment was infested with cockroaches and I was spraying pesticides everywhere. The whole thing was just spiraling out of control last Saturday. Haven't seen any roaches since the exterminator came in here on Tuesday. Have seen some mice. I'll talk to the landlord about the mice tomorrow. Mice don't bother me as much as cockroaches. I can deal with mice as long as there's not a large infestation of them. I noticed that there's a hole at the base of my door frame in my bathroom where the mice are coming in and out of my apartment. I live in a very large apartment complex. There's 2 towers. Each building is about 22 stories high, and the 2 buildings combined, there's about 525 apartments. So there's a lot of interconnecting, vents and tunnels and things where mice can crawl from one apartment to the next. And my apartment has a hole in the wall, like I said, in the base of the door frame to the bathroom, and the mice are coming in and out of my apartment through that hole. Maintenance is going to have to find a way to plug that hole up. Whether or not they need to kill the mice is a different story. I don't think that's really the issue. The issue is that hole in the wall has to be fixed and covered up because the mice seem to have eaten right through the wood frame of the bathroom door, and they're coming in and out of my apartment through the base of that hole in the wall. But other than that, I'm doing okay. Like I said, my hallucinations are there. They're always there. They're less intense than they were last weekend. This was a pretty good weekend considering I didn't go to psychiatric emergency. When I do go to psychiatric emergency, for some reason, it usually seems to happen mostly on the weekends when I'm most isolated and most prone to hallucinations, insomnia, panic, loneliness, depression, paranoia, delusions. Being isolated over the weekend is more difficult. There's less help available. It's hard to get hold of my psychiatrist over the weekend. I have a direct line to my therapist's phone number, but again, the office is closed over the weekend. So sometimes when I go to psychiatric emergency, it's statistically for me more likely to happen over the weekend than during the weekdays when I actually had more support. My therapist did tell me that if I have a problem between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. on Saturday or Sunday, there is a crisis center that can be used as an alternative to the psychiatric emergency room. If I'm not actively violent or suicidal, or even if I am feeling suicidal, I can go to the crisis center to talk to somebody. They're not there to evaluate me necessarily on whether or not I need to be admitted in the hospital. There wouldn't be any police there. It would just be a place to go to talk to someone, less intense than the psychiatric emergency room, which is actually often very totally fucking chaotic. I went to the psychiatric emergency room about 6 or 7 or 8 weeks ago. It's hard to remember when it was. But somebody had walked into the only bathroom in the psych ward and smeared feces all over the walls. And the place was packed. So not only was it chaotic with people yelling and screaming, but somebody decided to decorate the bathroom with their feces. And the crisis center offers an alternative to that chaos. It's for when you're going through a crisis, but you don't necessarily need to be in the psychiatric emergency room. And it's less intense. It's more welcoming. It's just a place to go to try to get through the crisis and struggle through it without going to the psychiatric emergency room. Because going to the psychiatric emergency room always involves, at least in Rochester, New York, the police show up first, then an ambulance comes, and then you're taken to the hospital. Once the police get there, you're pretty much going to the hospital whether or not you want to. If you go in voluntarily, you're really going anyways, whether you want to or not. I mean, actually, every time that I go to the psychiatric emergency room, I'm the one that calls 911, not somebody else. I live alone. And it's usually my judgment call on whether or not I want to go to the psychiatric emergency room. But my experience has been, even if I'm the one calling, once the police show up, and especially if I said I was suicidal over the phone, I'm pretty much going to the psychiatric emergency room whether I want to or not once the police get there. Once the police get there, they usually decide that you have to be evaluated, especially if you say you're suicidal or you're potentially violent or anything along those lines. So I'm doing better this weekend than last weekend. I didn't need to go to the crisis center or the psychiatric emergency room. My anxiety levels are pretty low. I've been using less Klonopin. I've only been using 0.5 milligram per day instead of 1 milligram per day. It comes in 0.5 milligram tablets. I also take it with Zyprexa when I'm going through a crisis because Zyprexa is an antipsychotic that helps reduce hearing voices, reduces delusions, reduces hallucinations. Doesn't completely eliminate them, but it does make it easier to cope. Of course, medications are not the only way to cope with schizophrenia. I mean, that's what the crisis center is there for. They're not necessarily going to give me medications if I go there, but they are somebody to talk to. I did contact my ex-girlfriend yesterday. She lives in Buffalo. I should not say ex-girlfriend. She is my ex-girlfriend, but she's still a friend of mine. I think the word friend would be a better word. And I talked to her a little bit to find out how she was doing. She lives in Buffalo, New York. And I just wanted to see how she was doing. And I hope she's doing well. She broke her foot a while back. And has been having a rough time with that. Talking to her always helps. It always helps reduce my anxiety. Um, I've been friends with her for a very long time. Haven't physically seen her in a long time. Her living in Buffalo and me living in Rochester, New York. It's hard for her to come here, and it's difficult for me to go there, although I would like to go to Buffalo at some point to see her if I have the time and the money to do it. It's actually not that expensive. All I would have to do is take the bus from Rochester to Buffalo. It's only about a 1 hour drive if you're going by car or by bus. 1 hour at the most. It's not that far away. It's near Niagara Falls in Canada and New York State. But talking to her always helps. She's a very nice person, a very caring person, and talking to her always helps reduce my anxiety. I just wanted to let her know how I was doing and find out how she was doing. She's got some issues that she's dealing with, which I won't get into here. I don't want to dump too much of my problems on her. And that's not the reason I called her. I called her just to find out how she was doing because it had been several weeks since I last talked to her on the phone. And when I talked to her on the phone, I talked to her over an app where I can actually see her face on my cell phone when I'm actually talking to her. I'd rather see her when I'm talking to her over the phone than just talking to her voice over the phone. I get a better idea how she's doing if I can actually see her when I'm talking to her. So she's got some issues that she's dealing with. And I hope she's doing well. I hope her family's doing well. As far as I'm concerned, tomorrow's Monday. On Thursday, on the 11th, I have 2 appointments. One with my psychiatrist at 1 o'clock, and right after that at 1:30, I have an appointment with my therapist on the same day in the same hour, 1 o'clock and 1:30, which would be Thursday, I believe, on the 11th. Haven't seen my psychiatrist in a while. He's been on vacation for all of October. And this will be the first time in 4 or 5 weeks since I've seen him. I did see my crisis therapist last Tuesday, I believe it was. And I'm seeing my therapist on the same day that I'm seeing my psychiatrist on November 11th. As far as my therapist is concerned, the therapist I have right now, I'm pretty sure is temporary. They're going to assign me a permanent therapist eventually at some point when one becomes available. So the therapist I have now, she's very nice. She's very easy to talk to. She's very helpful, but she is a crisis therapist, and she's not going to be my long-term therapist. But I will have a long-term therapist to help me cope with the hallucinations, the anxiety, the depression, the paranoia, and all the rest of it that comes with my schizoaffective disorder or schizophrenia. It's always difficult when your psychiatrist is on vacation. But my therapist has been a big help. I've been seeing her once every 2 weeks or so, give or take. I did just see her last week, and so seeing her this week is unusual because normally she sees her clients once every 2 weeks. But I asked to see her sooner than that because of everything that's been happening over the past week. It's been kind of rough. Things have kind of smoothed out a little bit. Physically, I'm a little bit tired. I have a lot of muscle body aches. I attribute that to just the fact that I'm getting older. I'm 56. I'm not 21 anymore. Maybe I'm not getting enough exercise, not getting out enough. Back pain, muscle pain. Don't have a fever, not coughing, not sneezing. So I don't think it's like the flu or COVID or anything like that, or a cold even. It's just general body aches and fatigue, physical fatigue. But at least I'm not as agitated as I was weekend and last week. Haven't seen any cockroaches in my apartment, knocked on wood, since the exterminator came on Tuesday. Um, I have a phobia of cockroaches, and when there's a natural infestation, that kind of drives me up the wall, to say the least. Um, and that was a big precipitator of my going to the psychiatric emergency room last Saturday. But of course, the problem is going to the psychiatric emergency room doesn't get rid of the cockroaches. It's just that I went not to so much get rid of the cockroaches, but because I was losing control of my behavior. I went through 3 cans of pesticides, which of course are poisonous to me as well as the cockroaches, and I was spraying it everywhere. So I felt like my behavior was getting out of control, and I had to go to the psychiatric emergency room to get evaluated physically to make sure I didn't poison myself, and also a place to calm down and regroup and then come back out and deal with the cockroach infestation as best as I could. And as soon as last Monday came, I called my rental office, and they were very quick to get a exterminator in within 24 hours. He was here last Tuesday morning, and I had called Monday morning for the landlord. So they got here pretty quick within 24 hours. The exterminator saying I might see some cockroaches here and there, and they give it about 2 weeks to see if the cockroaches go away. And actually, I haven't seen any cockroaches, so let's hope for the best. But other than that, got some sniffles, but I'm doing okay. Coping as best as I can. Some anxiety, but no real agitation. I'll probably take a Klonopin and some Zyprexa to help me sleep tonight, because I did sleep pretty well last night and the night before that. Some midnight panic attacks. That's normal for me. I often wake up in the middle of the night somewhat dazed and confused. Some of the side effects of the Seroquel is that I'm very tired and I'm very disoriented. I take 600 milligrams of Seroquel every night, and that's actually a pretty high dosage. And I was even on a higher dosage when I was smoking cigarettes, because if you smoke cigarettes, it interferes with what the Seroquel is supposed to do. So I was on a higher dose. I was on a very high dose of Seroquel. I was on 1,000 milligrams of Seroquel, and actually most doctors won't go above 800 milligrams. But since I quit smoking, we went down to 600 milligrams of Seroquel. And the other reason we lowered the Seroquel is because I was having difficulty urinating. Whether or not it was a Seroquel is doubtful, but it might have contributed to it. So the psychiatrist lowered the amount of Seroquel. But the actual problem with my ability to urinate was actually my bladder, which I had surgery on, and I'm able to urinate again. And that was a stressor for about 4 months, physically, because I had to wear a catheter and a urinary leg bag for about 4 months. I had prostate surgery, and I had surgery on my bladder, so I could start urinating normally again instead of passing urine into a plastic leg bag every few hours. Physically, I guess I'm doing okay, as well as could be expected. Like, comment, share, subscribe. If you want to donate to my channel, I'll leave a link in the description. If you want to help my channel, share my videos on social media like Facebook and Twitter, and press the notification bell to let them know when I put out new videos, and just share my videos on social media and leave a comment in the comment section.